podcast. I'm Andrea Chu.
And I'm David Belleville.
And we're here to talk Big Brother once again. Another exciting week. Extremely eventful.
It time and time again, this season has provided us with such great TV. And this week was no exception, with Tucker leading the house once again.
Mm-hmm. So Tucker's HOH, his reign was bound to be chaotic. He mostly was targeting the Pentagon, as we could have imagined. They were coming for him. He made it pretty clear that he was going for them. He ended up nominating Brooklyn, Cam, and Quinn, who are part of the Pentagon, but he said that Brooklyn was his target instead of Quinn. But I think it didn't matter too much to him as long as someone from that alliance went home.
Right, and he's telling the house guests different things depending on who he's talking to. Mm-hmm. He's telling Quinn one thing, the rest of the house the other, Brooklyn another. But you always got to stay on your toes when Tucker's in charge, and that's exactly what he had the entire house on, their toes. And so that leads us into another BB classic, a veto competition, the hide-and-go-veto,
so
where, keeping with the AI theme, they were all given, like, SD cards to hide around the house, and it was up to the rest of the house guests competing to find these SD cards, and the last one that was found was our winner. So, Andrea, before we go any further into the episode, we've watched this game for years.
We have.
Where would you hide the card?
Okay, my immediate thought was the toilet tank. I don't know if that's allowed. No one went into the bathroom, so I don't know if they were told, like, you can't go in there. But
they do have a camera in there.
That's true. We saw that. Yeah. So instantly I was like, the toilet tank, open it up, put it in there,
that's
done.
A good spot.
And if for some reason that wasn't allowed, I would put it flat on top of the fridge underneath the protein powders.
That's good. So my thought also went towards the fridge. I don't know what kind of clearance there is underneath of the fridge, but sliding it underneath of that, because, like, you can't move that fridge out. I don't know. Is that a viable option?
I feel like that would be allowed, because if Tucker can, like, wedge it behind two drawers in a weird way, you have to be allowed to slide it under the fridge, right?
I mean, you would think. We've unfortunately haven't been allowed in the house to check ourselves, but I would go for there. The fridge is where I thought that Mackenzie had a really good spot. She put it underneath the plant.
Yeah.
And of course, of all people, Tucker found it, but I thought nobody was finding that one.
He was, like, thinking ahead. He was like, walk in, where's the immediate place you would think to hide it? And plants were right there when you walk in the door. So I do kind of see where he was, like, trying to get in other people's heads in that moment. But his hiding place was virtually impossible to find.
And of course, he won the comp. And
shocker.
So, shocker. Tucker wins the power of veto, and more chaos ensues because he ends up using the power of veto once again.
So on his HOH, where a lot of people try to win the power veto in order to keep the nominations the same, he, of course, expect the unexpected, had another chaotic veto meeting where he stood up in front of the class, in front of all the house guests in the living room, and he exposed the big alliances, which were the Collective. He named all the members. He was like, it's Joseph, it's the Pentagon, it's, whatever. I can't think of all.
He did. He threw everybody's game out in the open, though. I mean, that was a very revealing veto meeting.
Instantly, he said, this is the Collective. And then he said, within the Collective, there's a smaller group, and he named the Pentagon. And then he goes, that being said, I would like to use the power veto on Quinn, and took Quinn off the block.
And what struck me as a standout moment among all of this was really what led up to that veto meeting, because Tucker strategically was trying to get as much information as he could out of potential nominees. And so he already had an idea of what the truth was, because Quinn bared all. He exposed everybody's game and the alliances that he was working with. And so once it came time to start asking other potential nominees, he was able to expose some lies. And so Brooklyn didn't give the full truth. Cam didn't give the full truth. I believe he also talked to Chelsie, who didn't perhaps give the full truth. And so Tucker was able to use that information to his advantage. And again, his strategy just comes through in a big way.
So what ended up kind of happening was that Chemo is actually the one who told Tucker all of the information. He was like, the name is the Collective. I'm part of it, but I'm not really working with those people, but just so you know, I'm loyal to you. This is happening. And then Quinn kind of just confirmed it.
Right.
So I think Quinn not lying in that moment,
Right.
Quinn actually telling the truth for once, made Tucker be like, okay, I trust you, reward you a little bit for that.
And honestly, it makes sense that those are good reasons to go after somebody.
Mhm.
And it's also just genius to be able to weed out who's telling you the truth and who isn't. So
Yeah.
kudos to Tucker once more.
But it did make Quinn look really bad, I thought, because it made Quinn look like he sold everybody out. Whereas he did confirm it a bit, but Tucker really gathered that information from a lot of different
Yeah.
people, mostly Chemo. But him exposing all this and then taking Quinn off makes it look like, oh, Quinn was so scared that he
Yeah.
just told out on everybody.
And it's ironic too, right? Because what Tucker was offering Quinn was the opportunity to get off the block. He was offering him safety, but at the same time, to your point, he kind of made Quinn look like a snitch.
And it made some people mad.
Absolutely. So again, Tucker's really controlling the narrative of this game at the detriment of some other players, and Quinn happens to be one of them, just consistently kind of stuck in between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah. So Tucker takes down Quinn. He names Chelsie as a replacement, another Pentagon member.
Yeah.
So at this point, I think he's like, I'm cool if Chelsie goes home. I'm cool if Brooklyn goes home. He's probably fine if Cam goes home,
Yeah.
even though they're kind of friendly. Like, I think he just wanted to chip away at that alliance. So immediately they go into the AI arena. And I don't remember the name of the game, but it was like words going across the screen that they had to decode. And some of them were backwards, which is a little tricky, and some of them were the right way. And it said like burger bouquet on the beach, and you had to go and like pick out the funny images and put them on the right backdrop. But at a certain point, they were going so slowly.
I mean, you could tell that this was live TV because they eventually were just like giving them the answer.
It was laid out directly in front of them.
Two
They were
of the
still like
three.
staring at the screen like,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, what is taking so long? Like we saw all the images. We know where we're picking from. It tells you right here. It was like cat, space,
Mountain.
mountain. And they were still like, So Chelsie ended up getting
Chelsie
it,
is the victor.
but it wasn't like so impressive.
It wasn't, and we won't dive too much into it, but every week I'm fanboying over Cam. He's my guy.
I don't know why.
Because I said him on the first podcast episode, and so now I just have to stick
You're just
with
loyal
it.
that
I've really dug myself into a corner here.
I think
But-
people just think he's a threat because he's strong, but he has no strategy and has done nothing impressive.
Yeah, well, I will say it did appear this week with him being on the block that finally some semblance of a strategy emerged with him. At least he's talking a little bit of game, and then he started getting buddy-buddy with Tucker, which rubbed his alliance members the wrong way.
That's true.
So he has injected himself in the game, but not nearly enough to like make me feel confident he's going to go far. But regardless, it was Chelsie who was able to take herself off the block, and it became our final two nominees of Cam and Brooklyn.
Which I think it seemed as if the house was thinking like me, because you were like, I would get Cam out. He's the big target. To me, Cam doesn't seem like a big target. I think they made the right decision in taking Brooklyn out.
Well, one thing that we've also discussed too is Brooklyn was overly confident for what she accomplished in this game. She hadn't won a comp. She hadn't held any
No.
power.
I can't think of anything that she did accomplish.
But every single diary room, she's like, "Oh, you messed with the wrong mom. You're gonna learn today." And
Yeah.
it was just like, you haven't done anything to give yourself the credibility to talk like this. And then she ended up getting eliminated.
Yeah, I guess
So-
it's like a good mindset to have, but it does come off a little funny when you're like, you messed with the wrong mama. And then like she does nothing. She's like, you watch, I'm going to fight to take myself off. And it just fails miserably.
And it did fail miserably. And so Cam lives to see another week, and Brooklyn goes home. And so for those of you keeping track at home, we are down to one mama in the Big Brother house, and that is Angela. And so that's going to bring us to David's Diary Room. This is a new segment we're going to be trying where I break down iconic diary room moments that made an impact on the game, or sometimes it's just for our own benefit and entertainment. And so going from Brooklyn to Angela, I want to talk about the charcuterie gate, where Brooklyn did something a little mean to Angela. She digs in to Angela's charcuterie board. Now, a little refresher. Angela originally won HOH a couple of weeks ago.
She did.
That HOH was stripped from her because Quinn had the deepfake HOH power. However, she still got the perks of being HOH. She had the HOH suite, and she got her basket with all of the goodies in it. Inside that basket was charcuterie. Who doesn't love some good cured meats and cheeses? I know I do, and so does Angela. However, she then became a have-not after being the first to fall from the BB wall competition. So she could no longer eat the goodies inside of her basket, and that led to the house guests digging in her charcuterie board, and her wrath was centered around Brooklyn. And this leads to one of the most iconic, funniest BB moments. She starts getting emotional, dramatic. She looks defeated and dejected, and she's just staring up into the Big Brother abyss. I mean, what was your reaction when you were watching this?
It was so funny. It was perfect Angela fashion, where she was like, those meats and cheeses, they really last more than a week. Like, I'll be able to eat them eventually. And then she's sobbing on the floor, laying on the floor, sobbing in the diary room. The shot of her on the ground just staring up was like amazing.
It really was. She's crying. I'm not sure I did notice any real tears, but she's obviously very emotional. She gets down off the couch and stares, and the BB editors just do such a fantastic job of cutting back into the kitchen of the house guests eating and enjoying their charcuterie. Let us know what side of this debate are you on, because Angela seems to think that these meats and cheeses were going to last 2 to 3 weeks. Cured meats and cheeses do last.
Yes.
They have a long shelf life. But Brooklyn said nobody's going to eat that, so we should. I think Brooklyn was in the wrong here. What do you think?
She was, and she also did this annoying thing where people do this all the time. They make like a flower out of the salami by folding it onto a wine glass and flipping it over. I hate when people do that because they have to like manhandle each piece of salami and then put it on the board for everyone to share. So maybe she didn't do that. I would understand her point more.
I also have a quest. That's fair. I wonder if the charcuterie was already opened or if it was still sealed in the fridge. Because if it was sealed in the fridge, that charcuterie had a long life ahead of it. If it was already opened, we start to get into some gray area. But either way, I am Team Angela on this one.
Either way, she should have asked.
Absolutely.
Just for the politics of the house. Even if you didn't really care, you should be like, hey, is it cool if we eat this? I know you can't eat right now.
Well, you always ask your housemates if you can eat their food. It's just respect. And if you're ever at my house, please ask before you eat my food, because I will sit on the ground and cry. Like Angela, why? All right, that's enough. That's our first ever David's Diary Room. There's more where that came from as well.
I loved it. So it brings us to Sunday night's episode, where we had the this like sound memory game where they showed you a bunch of funny clips and they put sounds to them, and then you have to answer true or false questions. These seem like honestly the hardest competitions to me because I always tend to pay attention to the wrong thing. I'm like paying attention to the order of the clips, and then it'll ask me like specifics, like what color was this person's shirt? And I'm like, oh, I wasn't paying attention to that part. So I tend to always pay attention to the wrong thing when I'm trying to play along at home.
That was really hard.
It was super hard.
At that point, it just came down to a guess at the very end. There's no way that you can remember all of that.
No.
And just the audio of it, I mean,
No, I was lost.
I would have just been guessing every single time. It's a 50-50 shot, not bad odds. But we got super excited about the winner of this competition.
T-Core. This feels like a perfect moment for her to peak in the game. She's been pulling the strings behind the scenes, redirecting the votes, flipping the house, and now she finally gets to have the most power, and we'll see what she does with it. Seems like she has this sort of strategy where she is going for people who don't have strategy.
Yeah, and I love that. That means that she has respect for the game and how it's played. And I'm a firm believer that competitors should be the ones that stay in this house. And so if you're lacking any type of contribution or strategy, yeah, go up on the block. You deserve it. And T-Core and Kimo, like you said, the timing of this is perfect for both of their gameplays because they've proven themselves to be strategic thinkers, and now they have the power to apply. I cannot wait to see what T-Core does with this power and how she'll bring people into her orbit, because she could position herself for the long haul here.
Yeah, there was also her friends were super proud of her. So it was like Rubina and
good.
Chemo are in like the bathroom area sobbing. Sobbing
So
about
funny.
T-Core winning the competition. They were like, she's so special. She doesn't even know she
It's-
deserves it.
seemed to go on
And then
forever.
it just cut between them crying and then T-Core in the kitchen just like sipping water. Amazing editing.
It really was. And that wasn't even the only funny moment, because there was another moment with Chemo and T-Core. And the editing, oh my gosh, I'm sure it's all over social media. Like, if you haven't seen it yet, go look at it.
Okay.
Chemo has a great voice.
Chemo has pipes.
Whoa.
I had no idea.
I don't know
It
where
was
that
like
came from.
soulful.
Oh my gosh, when the album is coming out after this season, I hope, because
I'll buy
we need
it.
more Chemo singing about Big Brother. It was
Mm-hmm.
such an iconic moment. The behind the scenes crew of Big Brother is really outdoing themselves this season.
Another big thing that happened this episode was Tucker was selected by America as the AI instigator.
That's right.
I kind of didn't have a lot of hope for this twist because I was like, what is this? Like, it's like people's deep fakes appear on the screen and they're going to say something wacky and people are not going to know what to do. But then it came into play in a much more serious way than I anticipated.
I think that it was a mistake on Tucker's part to open the way that he did, and to all the credit that Tucker
Yeah.
deserves so far in this game, it really feels like that was a swing and a miss.
Mhm.
You know, I can't even really understand why he would use Rubina in this context, and I don't know. Do you have a theory on that?
Okay, so what he picked Quinn's deep fake to deliver the news that someone saw Tucker and Rubina holding hands or whatever. I think maybe Tucker was trying to throw the scent off of him by including himself in the first one. And he maybe thought like, oh, everyone already knows that we're like sort of in
Yeah.
a like flirt man, showman, so this is not really a big deal. But Rubina just immediately started crying, and I think Tucker felt really bad actually.
Yeah, yeah. And I can understand Rubina getting upset. She hasn't heard a fly in that house, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden she's getting called out of
I
nowhere.
know.
I that logic makes sense strategically, but from just like a human to human level, I don't think he meant for it to turn out that way.
I
It was
know.
kind
But
of
then
upsetting.
he went to comfort her, but he was the one that did it.
Yeah.
And he couldn't tell her. It was like such a strange situation to watch,
And
knowing what we know.
and now we know the icky dirty secret. And
Yes.
take that to your grave, Tucker, because you're gonna be in the doghouse if she finds out. But he's not allowed to share this power.
Mhm.
And you know, we've talked a lot on this podcast about people gaining power in this game and then sharing it with the rest of the house.
Yeah.
So I like that the stipulation is attached to this BB instigator,
Yeah.
AI instigator, excuse me,
Mhm.
that he can't share this information, and that's how all powers should be utilized.
Yes, but Tucker also made kind of a bad move this episode, which is where he volunteered to be a pawn again.
Yeah, his luck is gonna run out.
It's going to run out. There's going to be a competition that he does not win. And I think he had no obligation to volunteer himself as a pawn. He was like, oh, I did it for everybody else, so I should do it for T-Core too. He did not have to do that.
Yeah.
And, she was smart by taking him up on it. I think I would have done that as well, but
If you're ever an HOH, you're always gonna take the person who's offering to be on the block. It's just
Yeah.
one less pair of bloody hands, you know?
I felt nervous for him though. Like, I don't think he needs to be in that position because if for some reason he can't pull himself off the block, I think he's going home at
I
the
mean,
end.
for the rest of the house, if they have an opportunity to get him out this week, then they need to take it, because those opportunities are going to become fewer and fewer, and you would think that eventually he's going to stop volunteering to go on the block.
Yeah.
And so if you have your shot, take it. And this is the time. This is the time. Although none of us want to see Tucker go. He's been so
I
entertaining to
know.
watch. But from a gameplay standpoint, we both know that would be the right move to go.
Someone has to take him out. The other two nominees are Cam and Mackenzie, who I think are not threats at all at this point.
No. Cam hasn't won anything and has really had no strategy. And Mackenzie just is floating and doesn't really have any strong alliance members. So
No.
Tucker is the clear choice, in my opinion.
hmm So we're going to try another new segment called Something to Chew On. And that's spelled CHU because that's my last name. So I'm going to leave you each week with something to chew on. And this time, it's the fact that I think it's pointless to have have-nots. I know that might be like a hot take because that's historically been a big part of Big Brother from the beginning. However, they barely factor into the game at this point. It's we don't see how they get selected. We don't see who it is. We don't see them sleeping on the uncomfy beds in that like brat green and black room. We don't see them eating the slop. We know we saw a little glimpse of I think it was like Angela, Joseph, and Chemo eating sandwiches as the have-not clock was running out and they could finally eat real food. That was the only time we saw anything about it. And if you didn't understand that they were eating slop up until this point, it kind of seemed like, what are we even watching? Like people eating sandwiches? I don't understand the context of it.
I like the psychological component of living in this house and you can't leave and you know, you're disconnected from the outdoor world. And so being a have-not kind of adds to that. But correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like what you're saying, it's just not adding any value to the game anymore, as opposed to it used to. It'd be a larger part of the game.
So to be clear, I'm not against having have-nots, but I think you need to either commit to it being part of the show or not.
That's fair.
Don't like literally not mention it on the show, and then still have people eating like nasty slop all week. Yeah. It just doesn't make sense to me. I know they used to have food competitions where they would play for who could get the food for the week and who would be on slop. Yeah. I think we should bring those back. I like more competitions. It's more chances for people to show off their skills. Yeah. So I'm like, either bring back the food competitions, show us who the have-nots are at the very least, and show them like struggling a little, like sleeping on the hard bed, or like, oh, I'm so tired and grumpy because I've only eaten slop. But we just don't see anything. And then it will just like briefly be mentioned, and you don't fully even know who the have-nots are each week.
Although when Angela was a have-not, she made sure that all eyes were on her. But I totally see what you're saying, and you know what? That's definitely something that I can leave with and chew on for a while.
Yeah, chew on it.
I like that.
Chew on it a little bit, and you guys chew on it too.
So before we go,
okay,
here we are. Who's your main favorite still?
Still Tucker. Yeah. It's impossible not to root for him. He's so strategic. He's so skilled at so many different things. He's playing so hard, and I'm into it. And I think a part of the reason that this season has been so entertaining so far. I know some people are sick of him winning all the time. I'm not sick of it. I want him to keep winning.
But the way he's winning is entertaining. So I am on board with that. Mm-hmm. Just because I have to stick to my guns here, Cameron, just figure it out, find a way. But at this point now, T-Core's my number 2. And she's like,
yes.
I mean, she could literally knock Cam off of that pedestal this week. But I've just been wildly impressed with her demeanor in the game, the way she composes herself, her connections. Like, T-Core, girl, you are killing it.
She's kind of moving in silence, but in a perfect way.
Yeah.
Where she's not doing anything. She's not floating. She's not just sitting back waiting for people to approach her. She's making moves, but she's not loud about it.
Yeah.
And I think that is very smart, and I think she is going to go far with that strategy. Hopefully, she takes full advantage of her position as HOH.
We'll find out and break it all down on our next episode of Hey House Guest. As always, thank you for watching. For Andrea Chu, I am David Belleville, and we'll see you next time.